Hi gourmet grain lovers, I'm Candy Lee Cole. How are you today? Well, it's a beautiful day here in Minnesota. We're already into the month of December, almost the second week, and we are experiencing unseasonably warm temperatures, something like 45 degrees for the next week. It's unheard of. And, you know, being the environmentalist that I am, I worry that this is the effect of global warming. But what can we do? I thought we'd make an eco-friendly recipe today. So I was feeling a little bit nostalgic today when I went through my cookbook, and I found a recipe that I made a long time ago. I hadn't actually made it recently. It's called Sesame Buttered Gourmet Rice and Vegetable Dish, and it's on page 148. And the reason I say it's nostalgic is because it's one of the very first recipes I made as a young teenage girl. I remember the day very well. My mom was getting ready to have our grandparents over for dinner. She wanted me to help with the meal. I decided to grab a little bag of rice out of the cupboard. I started to experiment, and I made my very first pot of rice without burning or scorching it. And then I think I collected every imaginable item from the refrigerator or the kitchen sink and threw it all in together with this rice and created a sauce for it, and the rest is history. Everybody loved the dish, and so it ended up in my cookbook. Anyway, what's in the dish? Well, for the main ingredient, we have, of course, rice. We've got brown rice, which you can use by itself, or if you like a little bit more texture and interestingness to the dish, I would suggest adding brown rice and wild rice together. And you can cook these together in the same pot, which I've already done. I have a pot waiting for me. So I'll show you that in just a bit. So then what I'm going to do with the rice once it's cooked is I'm going to saute in a separate pan. I'm going to saute up an onion along with some button mushrooms. I'm going to chop and saute some peppers in with that. Maybe grate up some carrots into some nice little shredded pieces along with some cabbage. And then if you didn't want to chop cabbage yourself, you could always use something like this, which is already pre-chopped. And then we'll throw in some organic green peas, a little bit of parsley, maybe some cilantro. And then we'll make a sauce at the end. Now, the sauce kind of intrigues me to this day. I don't know how I came up with this idea. I'm sure I didn't get it from a recipe book. But what I did back then is I took sesame tahini, which is like a sesame butter, and I blended it with some ghee, which is clarified butter, and I stirred in some tamari, and I added a little bit of sour cream. Kind of an interesting combination, but I guess it tasted pretty good. And then, of course, I seasoned the dish with garlic powder, onion powder, a little salt, and topped it all off with a few green olives. Now, there is an alternative to this particular sauce that has the sour cream in it, and maybe we can play around with some miso later too. This happens to be chickpea miso. So that's it for the dish, and in a few minutes I'll come back, I'll chop up all these vegetables, and we'll toss it together in the pan. Okay, thanks. Hi, we're back, and it took about 20 minutes to chop up all my vegetables here. As you can see, I've got the carrots that I chopped really finely, and I steamed these in this glass pot with a vegetable steamer. I thought that would work well, and it did. It just took a few minutes. I also steamed cabbage. Chopped the cabbage really finely, about a cup of it. So that's all nice and ready to go. And by the way, when I steamed this, I rinsed the vegetables in cold water to kind of stop that cooking process so I wouldn't lose any more color from the carrots. So you can just rinse and drain and set aside. And we've got the peppers chopped up, we've got the peas, the cilantro, and the parsley all ready to go. Now what I've got going in the pan here already is mushrooms, and I just added about a tablespoon or two of some ghee into the pan and cooked the mushrooms. I haven't cooked the peppers yet, so I'm just going to add those right in right now. We'll cook those just for a few seconds. Looks so pretty in the pan, and there's tons of vitamin C in those peppers. So I think I'll turn that heat up pretty high just for a minute, let those kind of cook real quickly. And I wanted to read you some information from one of my tabletop tutors. If you go to my website, you'll see in my store that I have a whole collection of these posters which feature great information about green living and eco-friendly dietary choices and cooking and all kinds of great subject matter. And I mentioned at the outset of this video that this was going to be an eco-friendly meal, as all of my recipes tend to be. So I wanted you to make sure that you check out this poster, which is called 10 Ecological Reasons for Eating One Vegetarian Meal a Week. So right here on the middle of the poster it says, do you know that the average American consumes 250 pounds of meat per year? So by reducing your meat consumption and eating just one vegetarian meal a week, you can reduce your meat consumption by about 35 pounds a year. Now that may not sound like that much, but when everybody does it, you're going to make a big, huge ecological impact. And some of the benefits of doing that including sparing water, because it takes about 2,400 gallons of water to produce 1 pound of beef. So you can save about 84,000 gallons of water just by eating one plant-based meal a week. Same thing with preserving fossil fuels. You know, industrial farming methods use petrochemicals, of course, in the growing process. But when you eat one vegetarian meal a week, you can save 15 gallons of gasoline. You can halt topsoil erosion. You can conserve land. You can protect animals from being abused in factory farms. Reduce animal waste. Use grains more wisely. Protect ocean life. And of course, nourish your personal ecology system. So those are just a few of the reasons for eating one vegetarian meal a week. So I think these peppers have cooked enough now. It just took a minute to do that. So I think I'm going to add in the cabbage, which is already cooked. Smells really good in here. Okay, and now I'm going to add in the carrots. I also had a little bit of stray celery in my refrigerator that I ended up chopping in there. It's not necessary, but I don't like to waste food and throw it away unnecessarily because we do a lot of that in our country already. And we also throw a lot of waste into the landfills. I think like 40% of the waste in landfills comes from food waste. And that releases a lot of, methane and gases. Greenhouse gases get worse when we do that. So it's always good if you can compost your vegetable waste if you have it. But it's also good to use up your scraps of food in the refrigerator and not always throw them out. Okay, doesn't that look beautiful in the pan? All right, we can add in our peas, and we don't need to cook these peas at all. They're just needing to warm up slightly. Oh, I love the color of all this. It's so pretty in the pan. All right, we've got a lot of food in this pan, and I'm already worried that once we add the rice, it'll be overflowing. But we'll give it a try anyway. There's a rogue pea that just got away. I think I'll eat it. So look at all the fiber in here. You got all this great benefit from all these vegetables. The cabbage, of course, is a great source of indole carbonol 3, very good for preventing cancer. All right, I think that's good. Now, I told you earlier that I cooked the rice in advance, and here it is in my eco-friendly pot. So I think the recipe calls for about 4 cups. So I'm just going to eyeball it. That's about a cup. That's about another cup. That's about another cup. And there we go. All right. I like the idea of having both the brown rice and the wild rice because you're getting extra nutritional benefit with that, the wild rice rather. It has about 4 times as much protein as white rice. Okay. Now I think I'll just do a little more seasoning. We already have some onion in there, but I'll add a little more on the top layer. Looks like I'm running out there. A little bit of garlic powder. Don't have to be too exact on that. We've got the sea salt that I always use. You can taste and adjust on your salt. All right. It's looking good, and this is going to feed a group. So, you know, you can serve it for company or just your family. All right, so I'm going to let that kind of warm through, and we'll come back and put the sauce together. Okay, see you in a minute. Hi, we're back, and we're ready to make the magic sauce. So, what's in it? Okay, we talked about tahini earlier. Tahini is such a wonderful ingredient. This is particularly thin. This is an organic tahini, and I like it when it's thin and pourable like this. So I'm just going to put about maybe 1/3 to 1/2 cup of tahini in a pan. It's a warm pan. And I'm going to add in about 1/4 to 1/3 cup of ghee, which is clarified butter. And you can find the instructions for making this in my cookbook. Okay, I'll just kind of blend that together. Pan is nice and warm. Now we'll add in a little bit of our sour cream, about 1/4 cup. I'm going to turn the heat down because I don't want to really cook that much. I just want to warm it slightly. And then we will add in some tamari, which is fermented soy sauce. This happens to be wheat-free and low sodium, so I think that's good. We're getting this nice kind of creamy sauce. You can see it right there in the pan. It's just a nice, thin, sensual-looking sauce. Okay, I'm going to add in about 1/4 cup of tamari. Usually I don't measure, but in this case I will. Okay, we'll just add that in. You can see it's taking on a nice, rich, almost looks like a gravy at this point. And I can hear these grains over here in the pan. They're just on a low simmer, and they're just waiting to drink the sauce in. All right, so there's our sauce. How difficult was that? Not very. All right. So I'm just going to pour this into the grain like this. Doesn't that look good? Now, sesame tahini, in case you don't know, is a great source of B vitamins and vitamin E. It's great for the heart. It's got the healthy kind of fat that we need to lower cholesterol. It's even good for detoxifying the liver. It has an amino acid called methionine, and that's supposed to aid with liver detoxing. So those are just a couple of the benefits, and I like it because it's a rich source of calcium. I try to add some tahini to my diet just about every day. Sometimes I make candies out of it, homemade candies. Sometimes I make a salad dressing. All right. So now these beautiful grains and vegetables have just this sauce just mixed right in. It smells great. Okay, now one of the things we forgot to add was the cilantro and the parsley, so I'll add that right now. Just give it that finishing touch of freshness. Looking good. All right, now for the taste test. Does it taste as good as I remember? Okay, got a fork here. I think I'll just take a taste straight from the pan if you don't mind. It's so good. It's really delicious. I don't think it needs anything. I mean, it's perfect the way it is. In fact, I don't even know. I'll serve a little bit up here on this plate because I didn't eat lunch yet today, and it's almost the dinner hour. So this is perfect. But I don't even know if I'd put the olives on. It doesn't really need it. You can try a few. Now, if you don't want the dairy in the sauce, you don't have to have it. In fact, come right back and I'll tell you a little bit about miso. Okay. So we're back, and I just wanted to mention something because I know that some of you out there are probably vegans and you're not into doing the dairy as part of the sauce. So you might want to experiment without the dairy and maybe just mixing the organic tahini along with some chickpea miso. Now, miso is usually made from soy, as you're probably aware, but a lot of people have trouble digesting soy these days. So I like the idea of the chickpea miso, and it tastes delicious. I just picked this up at my local co-op. It has kind of a sweet flavor, not too salty, and there's a reason for that. Let me read you something about this. The chickpea miso has less salt and more rice koji. Koji is the ingredient that contains the spores that help to ferment the product. And reducing the salt in the product when they're fermenting it increases the grain content. It makes more starch available to turn into sugar, and that's why it's got that slightly sweet taste instead of the salty. And I like that better. This is great, by the way, like just spread on some celery or something for a snack. So they say that the aging time of chickpea miso is so short, typically 30 to 60 days, and the starch in the product isn't exhausted by the time it's packed and refrigerated, and it's got a lot of lactobacillus bacteria at the end of the fermentation cycle, more so than some of the longer brewing misos. So that's good to know, because you're getting all those probiotics and all that beneficial bacteria that's so useful for gut health. Great for the digestive system. And you know, these bacteria play a more important role in our health than you might guess. I was watching a show last night on PBS, and there was a doctor on the show by the name of Rudy Tanzi. And he's very big into epigenetics, which is the science of how environmental factors influence our DNA. And he was talking about how important these bacteria are, because we have trillions of bacteria in our body. We have all these different kinds of bacteria, and we can literally, impact our health in positive ways or negative ways depending on how we feed this bacteria in our body. And so anytime we can get this good, healthy bacteria from a food product like this is great. We're just going to prevent disease from happening, and we're just going to feel a lot better in our guts and our whole bodies. So that's it. That's just a little tip, and I think if you want to try it, you could just, like I said, blend the tahini, about half a cup with a few tablespoons of the miso, maybe stir in a little bit of hot water so you can make a sauce, and just try that. And that might just be equally good. We tasted more of this while you were away. It's absolutely delicious, so I hope you enjoy it as much as we do. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.